This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay. All right. We can call to order the meeting of the Ad Hoc Grant Search Committee for March 30th, 2023 at about 2:33 in the afternoon. And we have Diana, Kate, Chris, Ed may come in for a little bit. And we have as guests Janet Kane and Joan Linehan. Oh my goodness, it's been a long day already, and I have 3 more meetings to go. So we are going to be talking about especially the programs for the COA, but just first, any business? We don't see anybody for open time for the public out there. And Kate, I think I'm maybe behind on minutes. One of us is behind, and I don't know if it's you or me. But I think we have minutes for our last meeting, at least in March, if not the last 2 meetings in March. So I may not have caught them in my email if you sent them.
Okay, we can do it. I'll have them for the next meeting. I'll check.
That's fine. That's fine. Just check. You may have sent them and I missed them. I've had a couple things go to my spam.
A lot going on.
I've had a few things go to my spam lately all of a sudden, which has been annoying to say the least. So anyway, I'll just want to pop in on one brief update before we start with the COA. And if Ed comes, he can give possibly another one. But just so you know, I think we had put in that grant request for the Safe Routes to Schools to do the basically to pick up where the shared use path ends on Route 10 as you turn the corner on Pomeroy Meadow. And so that worked out to be at least of interest to the DOT folks, and they showed up earlier this week, a couple of days ago. There were about 14 of them that showed up, along with Ed, Randall, Ian, myself, and Eliza, to basically give them the tour of the school and all around Pomeroy Meadow and the situation with the cars queuing up, etc. And Ed just walked into my little meeting here, my little office, my new office, my temporary office since I live here. Yeah. Anyway, so basically it was very good, about an hour, little over an hour, almost an hour and a half probably, and they broke up into about 3 different groups and walked down the sidewalk down as beyond the post office to see all the cars queuing up. They came right at 2:30 see the take-up line, which was great. And some of them walked around behind the school to see the kids as they were getting let out in small groups to get into their parents' car as they drove around the back of the school, et cetera, et cetera. So just to say, there was a lot of interest. The AECOM technical people were there. Some folks from the Northampton DOT office, as well as state DOT, as well as the state DOT highway engineers, I think they were. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the Safe Routes to Schools people. So it was a good first discussion. They seemed to get the lowdown of what our problems were. The one thing they don't like is that notion of us having a little driveway to pull off of Pomeroy Meadow and make a separate little driveway for the parents' cars to get the queue of cars off of Pomeroy Meadow, because that's really creating more availability for cars, whereas the purpose of this whole grant is walking and biking. So there would be something different than that. They are going to think about other ways to maybe achieve that same thing of having the parent queue line not be what it is right now. But it's probably not going to be the part we thought it would be. But that's the purpose of these guys, is they're the real engineers and they come out and take a look at it. So just to say, as I think I'd mentioned at Select Board, for anybody who hadn't heard it, we'd put in a request for about $1.2 million. And when we had our phone meeting, they thought we were being very conservative. And on the phone call, they had told us, I believe it was about $1.9 million. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. And now that they've come and seen it in person, we don't really know. But they're supposed to get back to us in about a month with some preliminary thoughts and ideas, and then we'll take it from there. But just to say that's looking amazingly good. So that would be taking that path from the sidewalk, at least from the post office area, on up to Gun Road Extension, and getting rid of basically that 4-foot wide one, I guess, with a telephone pole in the middle of it, and trying to make it probably 10-foot wide-ish, so that it would be proper for kids to walk and bike to the school and back, and then a couple of crosswalks, here and there. So anyway, to be done, but it would be probably a good 5-year project, as many of the DOT projects are. So nothing quick, but they seem like we're on their radar screen. So I think that was well worth it. Okay.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Maybe
So
it'll be done by the time Christopher's out of Norris.
There you go. Yeah. What grade is he in now?
Going into kindergarten.
Going into kid. Oh yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. That should be a problem. That shouldn't be a problem. We should be able to do that.
That's good news. Thank you.
Good. All right. Well, while Ed's here, I'm going to grab him for a minute just to talk about any updates on the park grant, because I know there's all sorts of rumors flying around town that thing is, gone by the wayside, and we're not going to have a walking path. We're not going to do anything, et cetera. And we're not quite there yet.
No,
so Ed, go ahead.
No, we're not, and been going back and forth with the subcommittee for the park commission that's working on this, and there were two equipment options out there, two different companies. We've basically all agreed on which of the two seems to be, shall we say, the most versatile and the better one to go with. We would order that equipment separately and then have a contractor install it. But GZA is just about finished with the complete design. They are waiting for, I think, one comment on their design for the backflow preventer from the water department. So no, I would not say it's dead in the water at this point in time.
Yeah. So what we need to do, and hopefully if this can get into us quickly, I mean, the next challenge though, where it can go by the wayside is a call then with Melissa from the park program. She's got to do some level of acceptance, and then obviously we would have to be asking for a short-term extension, I would think, on this.
Yeah, and the other piece is the design is a little bit different than what the original proposal was, so they would have to approve. And they're not misters, but they are low flow.
Low flow.
Yeah, which are about 28 gallons per minute instead of 50 to 60 gallons per minute. So they would have to approve that. Yeah.
The one good thing I guess I would say with that is that in the application itself, it was pretty generic. They didn't ask for a whole lot of technical details. We didn't have to give them any real specs in there. So as long as we talked about a cooling area, that was kind of all they really knew that they really liked. So, and just to say, the last time I looked, and we can check on this, should this not be able to be extended, or Melissa's just annoyed that we've taken so much time, or whatever happens, the next park grant opening, I think, is it may already be now, actually. And I'm thinking we applied last time in July. So it's something we've got to keep our eyes on if we get a negative response from her, and whether she would be willing to have us put in a new application or not, if we had to. So that's where we are on those. So I just wanted to give you guys an update on all that stuff. Okay. Any questions on those? Thoughts, comments?
Fingers crossed.
Yep, as usual.
Always.
All right.
As an outsider, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there still going to be a walking path?
That's the
It's
goal.
still part of it, right? The path?
It's still part of it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's still part of it. It just won't, at this point, it won't be able to cross Route 10. I think at this point, because that's going to require DOT and everybody else in it, I think, at this point. So I don't know. I haven't seen what she's done, but I doubt that's been included in that part. And what it would be is just that we would, people would do their walking around and go maybe to the end of the path, right out to Route 10, and have to turn around and come back. So not ideal, but it would be a step forward, literally, if we can pull it off. But I'm not sure. We didn't have enough money in the grant to think about doing crosswalks and so forth at that point in time.
But maybe for a future grant project. Yeah,
no, possibly. So we'll see if we can do part of this or not. But whether that's even acceptable to her or not, I'm not sure. But there's certainly I watch people walk up and down Palmer Meadow, and they go up and they turn around and they go back. So it's not like you're necessarily having to do a loop no matter where you walk. So anyway, we shall see. Okay, good question. Yep. All right. So with that, let's jump on to new business. So we have.
And I'm going to take one.
Yeah, you may. Thank you, Dad.
Thank you.
Appreciate the update. Thank you. Thank you. So let's jump in on anything with the Highland Valley Elder Services Grant? We just want to give us an update of where that's at, when it's going to expire, what's coming up, and what you're thinking about in terms of the future. If you want to apply for a new one, and if so, is the programming going to change a little bit, or what do you want to do? So we'll turn it over to Joan and
And
Janet.
maybe Joan, give a quick synopsis of
Sure.
the Memory Cafe and how that's gone. And I think it would be helpful to understand why maybe we'll change a little slight direction on that.
Okay.
Sure. So it's a 2-year grant, and it started October of 2021. So we'll be expiring in September of 2023. But of course, the new opening for a new grant is started the 15th of March and will go to the 15th of May. It has been partially successful. We've been able to execute at least out of the 24 cafes that we were supposed to have. We had to cancel a couple due to the pandemic. A few of them, people didn't show up at all. And then a couple of other ones, we had people, but they weren't the appropriate participants. So they didn't involve people with memory issues. So it's been a mixed bag. The program, as you know what the center looks like, we have the one big room and a partial kitchenette. And in a nutshell, my recommendation wouldn't be necessary to go for a memory cafe in the next grant cycle. I think we just don't have the space because in other places where they do have a memory cafe, they have a separate area where they can bring caregivers and they can have an educational, informational support area. We just have the one big room. So I don't think it is as suitable as some arenas for a memory cafe. So that would be my recommendation. So I don't know if you want to have any other questions for me about it. I mean, we've had a variety of music and pet therapy and art, and it's been a quality program. And, I'm proud to say that we were able to pull it off 80% of the time.
And Joan, just for their information as well. So so we didn't exclude anyone else from attending. So you didn't have to attend if you had just memory issues, like if there was entertainment or something that people needed, an opportunity to get out in a group and be with other people. We may have had 2 to 4 couples attend with caregivers and care receivers, and 25 that didn't qualify. So we only got reimbursed if people that were there with a caregiver and a care receiver was the only time we would receive the money every month. So I think it kind of became clear that there was an extremely strong need for people to get out of isolation and socialize, but there were some challenges getting people with memory issues there, whether it's not a good morning, it's a privacy issue, and they go to Huntington instead of Southampton because Southampton, and then maybe a stigma, people feel there may be a stigma affiliated with it.
I think
So
there's one,
were some of the.
There's one in East Hampton as well. I think I've seen advertisements for something there.
So they have their senior center, but not a memory cafe. I think the closest one is Huntington.
But they were just advertising something about a dementia workshop or something.
They may have dementia workshops and things like that, but that's not a grant funded.
No, okay.
We may want to go in that direction. I mean, we may want to, the caregiver support, which we had done once, and maybe going in that direction and getting things.
So I look at the list of priority areas for funding. So family caregiver services is one that sticks out because we did have a group through Nancy Ruscio brought in a presenter, and we had a nice turnout for that. I don't know how sustainable it is, or services to reduce isolation. Those kind of 2 things seem to have been more successful than trying to.
Yeah.
And it may be the day of the week. So we have it on Thursdays. DopaFit has its class, on Thursday. So there's a conflict, I think, there. So we're considering maybe doing it on a Friday morning next year. There's not other things going on in the center, so people aren't walking back and forth through the center. We suffer for some privacy issues, I think, the way we're set up today. So those are some of the things Joan and I have kind of bounced around, right? Does that make
Yes.
saying anything that's not true, Joan?
No, that states a lot of the challenges we've had.
Yeah, it sort of seems like we've done the socialization part, but we just misnamed our grant.
I was going to say, if it's just creating opportunities for socialization, that seems extremely broad.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very broad, right? So to reduce isolation, I mean, I don't know is there anything listed about socialization in their priorities? It's more about reducing isolation, which I think the Memory Cafe serve better that population than trying to get people to come out. I think Joan's tried a lot of different things. She's put together marketing material, reached out to maybe, neurologists to distribute and make sure they're aware of it. And, we've tried to be very creative and kind of targeted in our outreach.
Yeah.
It's just been tough.
Just from a logistics point of view, is there a new call for proposals already out, or is it the same guidance as last year?
Well, it was online. There is a guidance that was on the website. I did print it out.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it compares to last year, but I'm sure they're similar. They do want partnerships, etc. And they did mention multi-generational, which I've always felt there should be a need for multi-generational. So.
And I think we also have to keep in mind that Joan is leaving at the end of June. The grant starts in October. Depending on who and when we get a new director, what will they be qualified to help undertake the next 2 years?
Marla Hank.
Oops. Well, I see here it says must foster design, development, and implementation of program initiatives that engage elders, families, and caregivers. Promote community activities, resources, and programming, support multi-generational programming, support groups, training, and seminars, foster access and awareness to underserved populations. I mean, that's pretty broad.
Yep.
Maybe I should take a look at what other communities have gotten for grants. We did kind of jump on the Memory Cafe one because I was familiar with it. And the hill towns were doing it. We thought we'd do a partnership with them, but it's just they have their own space and it's just too far. So the partnership years ago, we had a partnership with East Hampton. I'm not sure where the partnership will be. West Hampton has been difficult, but maybe we could foster that somehow in intergenerational. We talked about it today that the regional high school is in West Hampton, so maybe we could do a joint thing. Halfway. I'm not sure how we would utilize the money or how we'd write the grant.
Yeah, I'm not sure that probably would be tough to pull off for the grant itself, I think. Because I think it's pretty hard for us to get up there on a weekly or a monthly basis to, especially over the winter, people would have a hard time, I think, getting up there. So, but, I think the partnership with another area is always key for them.
Yeah.
And just really focusing on what do you think, what we think might better serve the surrounding communities. I think there's a need, but I think it's for the Memory Cafe. And I think it was a great concept.
Is there a director in West Hampton?
She's only 10 hours a week, so I'm not sure if she works a day or two, maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe she works on Thursdays mornings. And so when would we schedule it where they don't have a place to go that they could, come to Southampton?
Or even before that, even before that, I was just suggesting if you haven't had that, maybe, you guys have a meeting with her, have a Zoom meeting with her to find out if there's any interest or need to do some sort of a collaborative effort. I mean, it would be great.
We need to decide if we decide West Hampton.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what other community might be.
I don't know if it just has to be partnerships with communities. I know it could. I mean, there are I mean, there's our church groups and things that we might be able to partner with, or there might be other organizations like, the
Mhm.
hospice groups or some other groups that VNA, that we might
Yeah.
be able to partnership with.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
So right
And
now we're kind of all over the place. We haven't.
Yeah. Got to narrow it down. Yeah.
You got to narrow it down.
Is there an actual application deadline?
15th of May.
Yeah.
So
15th of May. Okay. Well, we got a little time then. Okay.
So there was
And
an
then,
additional
yeah, go
session
ahead.
on March 28th, but we weren't ready to get there yet. So the next one is April 28th, which is pretty close to the end of the,
where did you see that?
it's in the grant. I printed it out.
Oh, because I'm on the board and I know they talked about the deadline being in May.
No. This is information sessions. The May 15th is the deadline, but these
I'm
are
sorry.
information sessions. Yes.
Oh, I see it now.
Yep.
Okay.
So we missed that one.
Just one question for me. I guess so. From what I'm understanding, with the amount we got, and correct me if it was not right, but something that was like $8,000 over a 2-year period, right?
Correct.
And so, I don't know if you have just off the top of your head, are we going to spend like 75% of that, or what's our drawdown expected to be between now and when this grant ends? And how do you think that might be looked at by the program committee if we haven't used our grants?
So we've been in touch with Kelly and the grant group from Highland Valley. They understand our challenges and what we've had. So it may only be 50% of the grant. Between the qualifications and the cancellations. And this has happened. We do have a little history of that, not spending an entire grant. I don't think it'll be frowned upon. I think it gets turned back into the coffers, and then we, they would give it out again to those other places that have a use for it. So, I mean, it won't be an X against us because we didn't use the whole grant.
Okay.
Was there any data that you pulled out of the senior center feasibility or information that might be helpful from like data that you could extract about programming that people really want? Because that might help support, you could say, hey, we did this big community survey, had this many participants, and X number of people are interested in this particular type of programming, which would hopefully have a better turnout or greater.
That's a great suggestion. I think we'll take a look at that survey.
Yeah, I'm not sure how applicable it'll be, but definitely the experience that we've had is when Jones had the Memory Cafe, the turnout has been phenomenal. So there's definitely that need. It's just that the majority of them, 95% of them don't have memory issues. They have loneliness. They want entertainment. They want socialization.
Yes.
So I think that, we can look at that, Kate. It wasn't designed to kind of, and we'll take a look at the statistics on that to see what programs. There was more about what would you like to see in the future from a new senior center versus probably, but we'll take a look at it. I mean, it's a good suggestion.
I'm just thinking about data you already have because the timeline's a little bit short. Reducing isolation, you could always pick certain, you try to make it more dynamic programming. It sounds like you're trying to do, try to bring in some new things to engage some particular groups of people. Maybe it doesn't always have to be the same thing, right? Maybe it doesn't have to always be a memory cafe, but maybe it could be, we had great success with the men's group, and it was really, it showed how many men were lonely, right? And didn't have, as much focused programming, or, maybe it could be a little bit more, less focused on just one thing. Maybe you could pick different things.
I apologize. I had some distraction in the office.
Happens to me literally every 3 minutes.
So anyway, I think if I'd like to look at what other towns are doing, and we'd like to narrow it down to maybe three different ideas, and so we can focus on one thing. Again, I think the Memory Cafe wouldn't be my choice, but I think we could do some kind of a cafe, which maybe is not a Memory Cafe. I think the caregiver support, some type of programming for that.
Yeah, I think we have a board meeting next week too, and we'll kind of bounce this, brainstorm about this next Wednesday to kind of get some good input from the other board members as well.
Did I understand that you had a caregiver support program at one point in time?
We had one event.
Okay.
And it was in the evening, and we had, I believe it's Mercy Life, and I don't know if Rini was working with hospice at the time too, but we had 2 or 3 people come to speak, and we had a good turnout of people that we never see or hear about. And I think it was really helpful to folks that are feeling like stretched, like I need help. I'm by myself trying to take care of my loved one, and I need to get some information. So, and I don't know, maybe we could do like a series of 6. I think other places have done like a six different series and make them all different topics that are important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like advanced directives.
Mm-hmm.
You could do fall recovery. That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think one of the things that would help, Joan, I agree with you, if you have on the website just a listing of the grants that they've awarded in the last year or so, just to see the wide variety maybe, and that would maybe be helpful for the board meeting too, just to see what are possibilities that they have tended to like to fund. That usually can give you a sense of direction anyway.
Yeah, I know the Hill Towns have had a grant for years, but they're less funded than we are. So I'm not sure what it's a consortium. So, I mean, they just renew that grant every year, and I'm not sure what it entails. But yeah, I'll look at the website and see what they've funded in the past.
Is that Chesterfield through Chesterfield specifically? Or kind of
Chesterfield, and I think there's 2 or 3 other communities that surround Chesterfield. They call it the consortium.
Probably Goshen and somebody else in there.
Yeah.
I know the director at Chesterfield seems to have a pretty close relationship with Highland Valley. So
Jan?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's been in the system. If not there, she's been, in the elder service network for years, her whole career, I think.
So it's a little challenging for us with the transition to a new director, if we have a new director by the end of and I guess I would, one of the things we'll talk about next week is doing the transition, because Joan brought up earlier, do we want to run it July, August, and September without her gone? And I think we have April, May, June to try to get maybe Sandy more transitioned into managing the program. To go
I think Kate was here the last time, and I think she would be the go-to person to run a program. I mean, even though Sandy's the program coordinator, I think Kate has the know-how to keep that going. So, I mean, we can talk about that. But.
Yeah.
I will tell you, easiest thing, if you have a bunch of money to spend, is to bring in some baby animals. You'll get a ton of people to come. Even at Smith College, I'm telling you, we have Pet a Pet Day, and we bring in animals, and it is literally like the most popular thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did that with a puppy, but I just want more the woman
baby
has
animals. Like they have like a mini farm that they'll bring to you. It's really
sure. Yeah, we have a woman who has alpacas. She couldn't afford horses, so she got alpacas. So I mean, we have connections, but some of these people will do it for free. That so we do have to find ways to spend that money.
Okay.
So a lot of it ended up coming from the state formula grant, because if we don't have anyone with memory issues, we don't get any reimbursement for the event. So, and you don't know until kind of that morning if they're going to show up this week or not, so that's, it's good that we've had the state formula grant as well to kind of fall back on.
Yeah. Well, maybe another focus somewhat in the coming year would be good. And then, depending on that, increased interest level, you may discover that there are others, with memory issues that would like to, eventually take advantage of that kind of a program in the future, because, like you say, there's probably still a fair amount of stigma attached to that whole thing.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, I think at this point, I just wanted to, make the opportunity for you guys to come and fill us in and, tell us what you're thinking and how we can be of any help.
And I know Kate was very helpful 2 years ago, and so we're open to any of your thoughts, okay? For sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd love to hear what would benefit the most for the folks who are using the Council on Aging, because of course I'm kind of out of touch with that, but I'm happy to write any persuasive language that would help support your work.
Right. Yeah. Diana, any thoughts offhand from?
No, just listening.
Okay.
Taking it all in. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's a list of priority areas, and we just need to, kind of focus on
Mm-hmm.
kind of one of those and define it, what meet the needs of Southampton, I think. So
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's all up on the website for Highland Valley, is that right?
when you clicked on the link that was in the email, it brought up the proposal, and I just printed it out just for it easier.
What email?
Did we forward you the Highland Valley grant? I thought I did. I thought I sent you the announcement for the Highland Valley grant.
I don't think so.
I went to the website and got it, but I'm sure
I'll look for it again, Chris, because I thought I had forwarded it and said it's that time of year again. So.
Oh, well, if you did, it might have gotten buried with all the others. Sorry.
It's on the
But yeah.
RFP, the Title III RFP. So, I mean, it's on their
Yes.
website.
Yeah, and it's on their website too, but I don't want to make you guys go looking for it. So.
Okay. Well, if you have it handy, just shoot it around to us. That would be fine.
Yep. Sorry, I thought I did that. My apologies.
Well, no, you may have. It could have just gotten buried with many more.
With Kate's minutes.
Yeah, sure. Indeed. So if you guys are going to meet next week, we could potentially, if you thought you had something that needed our attention, we could possibly have a meeting. We could schedule one temporarily anyway for the 13th, which is a Thursday.
long as we're not having our feasibility. Which
Okay.
You said April 13th?
Yeah. Does that work or not?
I could do 2:00 on that. It's funny, I have that day pulled up. I have a meeting with the people about the substance-free or drug-free coalition as well. So
yeah.
I
Okay.
could do well,
actually,
here at 4.
yeah, actually Wednesday could work as well, the 12th, if you wanted to. If anybody,
better for me.
that's better for you. How about Diana?
I don't think so, but that's okay. Just leave me out of it.
We're waiting to get the feedback on the COA Director Search Committee for next week too, or for the next 2 weeks, to see what date works for everybody. But the 12th, either one of those days work for me at this point. So.
And me as well.
All right. Well, we'll put it down for 2:30 on the 12th.
Sure.
Okay. Well, we'll schedule it, and then if it has to change, we can always do that. But at least we'll have a holding spot. Okay.
It's on my calendar. Perfect.
All right.
12th. Okay. I'll add it.
12th at 2:30. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Great. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much for
All
that.
right. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for
Yep.
your time.
Nice to see you.
Thanks, guys. Yep. All right.
We're going to leave
Okay.
you.
Yeah, you can, no, feel free. So I don't know if we have any other business. I don't think I have anything in particular. There should be the MVP grant coming out soon, and I don't know that I've seen any separate notification on that, but it's definitely another
I
one.
will say about the MVP process. So I went to their, oh my goodness, I gotta find the notes. But I went to their presentation, and the one thing that they recommended is that because I did propose the idea about us using the money for the public safety complex, they really suggested that we reach out to our regional coordinator ahead of time to make sure that it aligns with the grant objectives and to make sure that it ties into climate resiliency, which obviously I kind of felt like it was going to be a little bit tricky to do that. But I also thought I did circulate, I think I sent it around to you, about how Williamsburg used MVP funding to build a public safety complex. And it was almost the exact same project.
But I don't know that it was for construction. I think it might have been toward the heating cooling system, which would fit, not the entire structure, but a feature of it that would meet climate resiliency. That's my understanding, but I could be totally wrong. So I think we would have to check on this. MVP wouldn't be my first thought on this grant, but I mean, the public safety complex wouldn't be my first thought for this particular program, but could certainly reach out to, I'll find somebody, I can reach out to Williamsburg and just find out, more about how they did that.
I just saw that so it's 5.1 million. I saw it says by a team, I mean the public. So we could ask them how they got their funding.
Right. Yeah. All right. Let me, I know a couple of folks in Williamsburg. Let me see if I can corral somebody who would point me in the right direction to talk to somebody about that. Because I guess I would see it only for a portion of that, but I could be really wrong. I don't know how, unless they made this a total green design and frankly, going by the place that's being built in Williamsburg doesn't look like it's a really green design. So I don't know, but I'll check it out.
Where is it?
It's right on the main street in Williamsburg. It's taking the place of the old school that they tore down.
Oh, right. I knew
right before the general store.
So I'm just pulling up my notes about the MVP process because it was a pretty robust.
It's a heavy grant.
Yeah. I felt like a little bit overwhelmed walking onto there, but the key takeaways was that they're opening for applications like now. There's going to be a new phase of the MVP process that's going to be called MVP 2.0, and I'll get to that in just a second. What they did say is once they are open, they can't answer. It's something about them not being able to answer questions after a certain time. So
that's true. Yeah, that's often true. Like
what they said is if you have questions, ask your questions now because it does. I'm trying to see if I can find the date. I just took a lot of notes. It says Q&A period. So once the RFR is released, which is supposed to be late March, the Q&A period is 2 weeks. And then applications are due early May 2023. So it's kind of short. That's really fast. So if we have any questions, we need to ask them soon. And then they said that the award announcements would be in August. And the timeline can either be a 1-year timeline or a 2-year timeline. You can apply for 1-year funding or 2 years of funding, depending on the scope of your project. But I think you have to spend the money. Projects either end June 30th, 2024 or 2025. And you have to do clear phases for each fiscal year. I'm sure they have to have the money spent by the end of the year. But they said once application is released, contacts are not able to respond to questions anymore. So maybe that's maybe the Q&A period's ending now.
Do you know when it's funny, I didn't get a notification on that NOFA. Did it say when? I don't know
if it's released yet. They said it would be the end of the month.
Okay, the Q&A happens after they release the request for applications. You've got 2 weeks to ask any questions, and then they shut it down.
Okay.
Usually that's how that goes on some of these grants. So I would think we're probably still in the question period if they've actually released this, but it's a challenge. I don't know. We'd have to really think about it. And again, so getting together on the 12th or whatever would be a good idea because I think we should, have a better idea by then. And I'll get in touch with somebody from Williamsburg just to see what they did there on that one. The only other thing I'm thinking about, if I remember the MVP plan, right, was something about the generator for the school and a couple of other things that would be more easily tied into climate resiliency, which certainly is the name of the game these days.
They said, I don't think they will cover diesel generators as part of this grant program.
Okay.
I think they stated that in the webinar.
Okay.
I could be misspoke. No, they said projects that are not MVP competitive are diesel generators, tree removal, FEMA hazard mitigation plans, academic studies, feasibility or design of solar and battery systems, but installation's okay. Emergency preparedness projects that don't incorporate climate projections or planning. And projects that include building construction where the building will rely on non-renewable sources of energy.
Yeah, and see, that's where I tie into that whole thing with Williamsburg, because it's like it makes me feel like there's a piece of something they did in their design that would have qualified, but maybe not the entire thing. And the only thing I could think of would be like the HVAC system or something like that,
I'm
or
like,
maybe the lighting, or
they got
maybe the lighting.
They got $2.7 million, it says, from the MVP process. It
Maybe
says, the money will allow the building to have solar power and battery storage.
Okay.
And it says it will allow the building to be energy self-sufficient for up to a week. So maybe that's how they got the MVP, is it was installation.
There we go. Yeah. That's okay. That would make some sense, that it's a feature of the construction, of the facility, but not the construction itself per se. Yeah, that would make a little bit of sense, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
But it could be cool. It could be making a cooling station or addressing air conditioning if it was at higher efficiency for Norris. I know that was listed as a high priority in our MVP planning process because of schools have closed because of heat.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. That seems a little bit more manageable in my head, but I don't know. I mean, it was really hard to even write those requests to Markey and Warren and the One Stop program, talking about a future phase of a public safety complex when we don't even have, the design underway yet. So it was, to talk about yet a feature of something that would be, 3 years down the line to construct. I'm not sure that the time frame would even fit, Kate, in terms of this, because we're so far off from having a building to to do anything with. But the school in general feels like it would be a more possible one. But let's take a look at that again and go back to that MVP plan again and take a look. When I put out a request for a call for requests last time, I got no other departments telling me that they had an idea or wanted to help on it. So we didn't get very far. But the last time Rando reached out, he worked with Tie and Bond, and they actually put in the application. They did the application. I mean, he paid him like $5,000 to do the application, but that's what it took to do all this, over mapping and whatever they require. Because this is, if it's the same kind of application, it will be pretty robust, as you say. Yeah. And even with them, we didn't get the grant. So
yeah, right. The second part of that is the MVP 2.0. And I'm sorry if I explained this horribly. It really didn't make a lot of sense to me, but it's supposed to be a really short application. And the goal of the new MVP program will provide communities with guidance and funding to expand their core team membership to center community members who will be most impacted by climate change, to receive training on climate resilience, best practices, equity, and environmental justice, and receive technical assistance and funding to develop and implement an action plan. So they said they're going to pilot 30 total towns, cities or towns, with 5 per region. And then I think the goal, which sounds kind of crazy to be thinking about, but I think the goal is to then develop a structure to update all of the MVP, planning, we went through the MVP planning process. I think their expectation is going to be that we update that plan, just like we do with the hazard mitigation plan. So I don't know if that's going to be wrapped into the 2.0 or if that's going to be in parallel with the 2.0, but I
mean, it's not been that long since we did the update of the MVP plan. It seems a little early to update it already.
They're going to start with the people who did it first, and then we'll start working on those, and then eventually, yes, we'll have to upgrade it. And so I think what we could do in that time frame is really think about what are our priorities and what do we want it, maybe readjusting what we really need funding for, so that way we can, because if we have something listed as a low priority, we're not as competitive for funding.
No, for sure.
Right. And I think we didn't really know that kind of going through that first process.
Well, I think we were trying to focus on the high priorities of the, what we had put in the MVP plan. There was a whole matrix there of high, low, and medium priorities. And that's where that culvert thing got, put on by Tie and Bond to do. And it got, nowhere with MVP, but then it got awarded at Clean Water. So basically the same grant application. So let's just commit to just taking a look again at the MVP plan that we have in place in the matrix, just to see, out of those, let's everybody come back with maybe your top two thoughts, or email me or whatever your top two thoughts as to what we should possibly focus on, and then we could see, how much information do we really know, and how heavy a lift this would be to try and do something with it. But
What about
we need buy-in? Like I'm looking at this very small number of people on the screen and how much work this application would be, and I feel like not having input from anybody seems a little bit.
No, I don't want to do this solo. I mean, this is not, no, I don't think so. Yeah, Diana.
Oh, I was just wondering about the electric chargers, vehicle chargers, but I think there's another grant that they really recommend for that. So, I mean, it would certainly come under climate resiliency, but again, if nobody's advocating for them, then
at some point, and I don't think it'll be here at this committee, but probably in the cost efficiencies committee sometime in the future, in the next few months, maybe, Eversource has been talking about doing presentations about putting in a solar array in a community. So this whole notion of maybe putting in a solar system up behind the current firehouse to make use of that land. So they're starting to do a little bit of public education and outreach to communities, apparently. So we've got our ear plugged into that just to see if, maybe that's worthwhile, because that would be a first step, to hear from them too, on any of that stuff going forward on the electrification idea. But it would be both, not just for vehicles, but obviously a way to minimize our utility costs here in all the municipal buildings. That would be the first priority of it, obviously. But
I'm just looking at this list, thinking about it before next meeting. Really, the only thing that stand out is, the stormwater management. We talked about the dam assessments, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of energy or like fire behind that. The public safety complex, hiring staff, I don't really know if it would fall within the scope of the MVP, but there's the town planner, conservation agent, and a code enforcement agent, right? Like, I don't think that we could do that through this program. And it says assess options to address excessively hot days in school, like you mentioned, and establish designated healing and cooling centers in town. And then technology for emergent, so those basically are our high priorities at this point. So it sounds like the only one that we really could feasibly try to implement would be the and there's evaluate technology used for emergency communications. But I mean, it seems like a big lift for
I mean, the heating cooling center one seems like it's maybe not low-hanging fruit, but it's at least reachable, maybe, compared to some of the others.
Both things. Maybe it could be a heating, cooling,
right,
and do it within North School. I know we got the generator for the church, but maybe we could look at both of those things kind of as an initiative.
I mean, there was a designation at one point, right, Diana, about the church being
there's two memorandum about that.
Right. I don't know that they really ever did much more than put it on paper in terms of, any practicality of, what it needed to have for, stuff to make it happen. It was just a designation, but it wasn't really fleshed out in terms of what it needed for infrastructure to accommodate that, so.
No.
And this does say assess feasibility as a second priority, assess feasibility of using Norris Elementary School as an emergency shelter. So thinking about what already is written as our high, medium priorities. And honestly, if I had known what I know now about how they really prioritize funding based upon what we put into that report, I really feel like we could have focused our highest, highest priorities on what we need money for.
Yeah. So, well, so much of it depends on what we're eligible for, though, too. I mean, there's some that just don't make sense for us, too. So, right. I mean, I think that's the problem. Yeah, Diana, last.
I think I remember reading that they had used MVP grants to mitigate beaver problems, which was kind of unusual, but I don't know if that's an issue anywhere. But also for permeable parking lots. Those were things that people got MVP stuff for. And, there's this huge landscape partnership grant afoot
Yeah.
And they're going to need partners in that, but it doesn't make sense that they could have another state grant as a partner with a state grant. I
Right.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And just back on the beavers, I know Randall gets some small money from I think it's MSPCA or elsewhere. There's a couple of small beaver grants that he's done to help, redirect the beavers from the culverts and things like that.
Okay.
But
just something that occurred to me. I mean, it'd be nice to have like a new parking lot at the church, but that would be, and if we could get money to make it permeable, there's no way that that's going to happen with the.
Doubt it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's sort of put our thinking caps on here, and I'll take a look to it, rereading a bit of that part of the MVP and see what things are. But I think something around the school area, something related there makes the most sense.
I'll re-forward my notes because they're like literally like 500 emails into my emails.
That's fine. I'm sure I did see them when you sent them out, but I wasn't focusing on MVP because we were doing those other grants at the time. So.
Yeah, because you were on like
if they rise to the top of my email list, I will focus on them again. So
I just hit resend. Yeah, I did try to take some pretty good notes.
Good.
And they said that they're going to post them on the web.
To make something an emergency shelter, do they mean like they'd provide beds, like and what
I think that would be a great question to ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll reach out to Williamsburg and see. Well, you already kind of read that, but we could confirm that if we needed to, what they actually got the money to use. But and then if we have a district person named for us, there must be on the website. There's a district person.
Yes, there's a map. There's a map in the presentation. I don't know. It says Berkshires and Hilltown Regional Coordinator. I think that.
No, we'd be the Valley. So
there's no Valley person.
Huh. Okay.
Greater Connecticut River Valley Regional Coordinator. Oh, maybe that's us.
That's us, probably.
His name is Andrew Smith.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll take a look at that again, and then we'll see. But if you guys have got any thoughts, let me look at it a bit over the weekend, and I'll shoot an email around to you with my thoughts of. If we have any questions, if we were focusing on the school, what kind of questions would we have that we could ask them real quick, maybe? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, I have to go to another meeting, I guess. So I think we're pretty much done anyway with agendas. So if there's nothing else, could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. So 3:25. Call us adjourned.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys, for coming. And
good luck at your next meetings.
Yeah, we'll catch up with you later. Yeah, we're working on the website next. So
fun. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.